despite the fact that the lawyers took the medical reports to show him that I had COVID. Despite that, he issued a bench warrant of arrest against somebody who was right in bed battling COVID. People of Zambia. I was just at my house in Washington. But thanks to the police, they were reasonable enough. When he was challenged by the lawyers that you can't issue a bench warrant against a person who has COVID, we can't bring our client to court because he has COVID. What did he do? He moved the court himself. Mind you, courts are moved by either the prosecution or the defense. That's your lawyer. It should have been the prosecution to say that without this, can we call the doctors from Lone General Hospital to come and confirm? But the court started its own, the court moved itself without being moved. The prosecution team had no problem with my COVID issues. He subpoenaed the medical doctor from Lone Hospital who attended to me. He subpoenaed the executive director of Lone General Hospital. And he also subpoenaed the provincial medical officer from Copperbelt, who is responsible for Tropical Disease Research Center, who are carrying out COVID testing. They came to court, and both of them confirmed that I had tested positive for COVID. The director, medical director on the Copperbelt said, for me, we don't look at individuals and names, right? We only look at results. And yes, the results of this man were as presented. Because the man had a premonition and a hatred for me because of known reasons, which you know, that one, I have sued him for defamation of character. I have reported him to the anti-corruption for trying to get a bribe from me of 360,000. Extortion of money using the judiciary, using his position. What did he do? Despite the doctors who attended to me confirming that I was positive, the hospital that attended to me, he subpoenaed that he wanted the person who actually did the results. Have you ever gone to the hospital, the doctor says, you have got malaria, you say, no, I want to listen from the lab technician. Ever, before you start work, you go for medicals. Who gives you the medical report? It's the doctor. Who does the examination and the results? It's the laboratory. But in my matter, the man now subpoenaed that he wanted the laboratory technician who did the results to come and confirm. Chishimba Kambwili for speaking for the people of Zambia. This is too much. This is extremely too much. Unfortunately, the authorities in government thought it was not necessary to bring the lab technician. They ignored him because as far as they were concerned, the doctors had confirmed. 2 doctors. So when it came on Monday, when he subpoenaed the man from the laboratory, he didn't show up. And he said no, in his own ruling, he said no, since now the accused person is back and those doctors came, it's okay, we can proceed with hearing of the matter. But in his judgment, within Zambia, he comes and writes that he faked COVID and absconded court. So you can see that everything this man did was just malice. Ichamukalipe fye, ichamukalipe mwacho wandi. Nicho nali mukanyo kumupelo fye because I don't behave like that. I refused And again, third lie that he told on that judgment. He said the accused person only applied for me to recuse myself from the case after I found him with a case to answer. That's why I've said this matter is of public interest. Go and check the record. When he just asked me for the money and he started treating me badly so that he squeezes me for me to be scared to give him the money, we applied for him to recuse himself. And the records are there. He refused. He called the lawyers in chambers and said, no, Vane, I'm not being biased. When you see me in Deva Fidia, because I've got pressure from the government, it's just that to show that I'm strict. You were there in the chambers. You were there. So Ngamamona Deva aggressive towards your client is not with any malice or anything. I just have to show a picture that I'm working. So forget about this thing of me recusing myself. But luckily enough, or intelligently enough, we had filed the process. And it's on that record. Unless he has doctored the record. And we saw during trial where he started doctoring the record, we made an application to the resident magistrate, chief resident magistrate who was there, Murife, to say that we needed court recorders. You know those court recorders who are in the High Court. So that that man does not alter or make alterations to the record. And Mulise, by a court order, ordered that court recorders be introduced in that court. But that was almost halfway the proceedings, and court recorders were brought. So if you go and check that record, we filed for him to recuse himself long before he put me on his defense. Again, when he puts me on his defense, he sent the people and said, no mbana namubika pa defense. Ichile konka puguka kwa. Mweveni alete pe 360,000. Then it will be resolved. Then I said, no. Then we are dealing with a person who is what's the word? Incorrigible. He doesn't learn. I gave him time for him to reflect. Now I realized I was dealing with a person who is incorrigible. So what did I do? Not to put the judiciary into disrepute because I respect them. I did not rush to go and report him to the anti-corruption members of the press. That's how I respect the judiciary. I decided to complain to the Chief Justice. I had a meeting with them and they asked me to put it in written. And I wrote my complaint of all the things that he had done. All this was in an effort not to put the judiciary into disrepute because of one particular individual. The judiciary is an important institution, sacred, which is supposed to decide on people's liberties. And to cast aspersions on them would not be in the best interest of this country. If us as leaders lose confidence in the judiciary, what about the ordinary person on the street? So because I respected the judiciary, I wrote to them confidentially to say that, Chief Justice, this is how your magistrate has been behaving. To my surprise, I received a reply, which I will not disclose what was there, and the man continued on the case. Then now after that, it even became, my experience in that court. When I look back, my heart beats. I have never seen a magistrate who behaves like that. I have never seen a magistrate. To the extent that at one point my lawyer said, no, abuse, this man is abusing us too much. That's when you heard my lawyers withdraw. They withdrew because of the abuse that was coming. The way I was being treated and the way the lawyers were being treated during trial. He refused to recuse himself. We wanted access to the record so that we can do a judicial review. He was carrying the file in his armpits. When magistrates are working on cases, they leave those files to the registry. For him, my case, he was taking it in his briefcase so that we could not have, nobody should have access. We made an attempt so many times to go and do a search and look at the record. The registry told us, I record the end of a magistrate. Abantu bakwalese funa pitamo kwati nshabombera kino kyalo. I have served this country with integrity. You remember when I was minister? You remember, you people, when we started PF from the scratch, like I said, nalikakilwapo in the past by MMD, nalikuminwapo kunguma ba police what wale umemba tanangwimbwa. But today, I can be treated like this by one magistrate because I refused to give him 300,000. It's unfortunate. 360,000. It is very, very unfortunate. But one man cannot destroy the judiciary. We need to sort out this one man. And by the way, I'm not the first one he has treated like this. He first treated Dr. Membe, Fred Membe, exactly the same way. He asked for something from him. When he was not given, Dr. Membe ended in prison. He asked for 250,000 from Nevas Mumba, Dr. Nevas Mumba, and when he didn't give him the 250,000, he sent him to prison and disappeared for 14 days to avoid to hear the bail application. And you saw what happened in my bail application. He delayed until I spent 13 days. That's when he had that's his nature. When people refuse to give him money. But you cannot turn your office into a money-making venture. That is wrong. Dr. Mumba complained, and you've heard what the Judicial Complaints Commission has said. And that's why I'm saying the judiciary still remains an important and, what can I say, institution with integrity. Because the JCC have written to say this man's behavior is uncalled for and he must be removed as a magistrate. So that in my complaint, based on another person's complaint, and to make matters worse, you can go and confirm with Dr. Membe what he did, because he knew that Dr. Membe and Mr. Sata were very close. When we won election, that Simusamba went to Dr. Fred Membe and pleaded, Munjelele ko filana mikakile, vale mpatisha feva system, the government yanjewelo kumikaka. It's not me. I have got a family, Munjelele ko. What I did was wrong. That's the person we are dealing with. Dr. Membe is there. From this, you can go and ask him. You went and knelt and cried before Munjelele ko na mitubine. You didn't do anything. Na limikakile because bambo mfeshefi. And Dr. Membe, because forgave the young man and told him, don't ever do this to another person. I forgive you. He thought Dr. Membe was going to use Mr. Sata to have him fired. Kano Kamila ndo kala ibala. Membe tabamuchite threatened. He did not threaten him. He went to plead because he was guilty for what he did. That's the person we're dealing with. I feel sorry about the young man. He's a young man who has a lot of future, but his conduct is unacceptable. So it is very wrong for him to tell lies in a government document, which is a judgment that one, I was absconding court, two, I was being disrespectful to the court. If reporting him to the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Chief Justice, and suing him is misconduct, then I'm 100% guilty. But for some of us, we believe in calling a spade and not a spade a pig for the sake of impression. If other people had not reported him for me, I wanted to make it right that this man cannot continue with his trajectory. So all that lies he made in his judgment, I'm challenging everybody, particularly Law Association of Zambia. I want you to go and look at the record and confirm what I'm talking about, that this man was only being malicious.
Kambwili.
So I want to make it clear, I never absconded court. 3 times I was warned by him. 1, I'd gone to South Africa for medicals, authorized by another court. 2, the anti-corruption came to search me and refused to release me. And 3, I had COVID. And 4, I was admitted in the UTH, which he could have even, if he wanted to come to the hospital and check that I was in hospital. Commercial break, ngawasana muchifungo. Nangulalanda bwino. Uwambo kufyanda keninwe kwa commercial break.
Kambwili. Sosa. Ichalo chile kumfwa.
So I hope I've made it very clear that Honorable Simusamba lied in his judgment to justify him sending me to prison, and of course to try and create an impression to other judicial officials, judicial officials, that when I appeal, they should look at me as a bad person who doesn't respect the judiciary. I felt this was very important for me to communicate. I don't want to go in the nitty-gritties of the cases why he jailed me or what, but only to say, to declare my own son who na fiele ne mwine na mfiala 1993 twamukushamu amba Chishimba Kambwili ubisa that is a fictitious person is an insult. When my son came to visit me in prison, I said, what are you doing here? You don't exist. You are fictitious. And my son dropped tears. I said, somebody has declared you that you are fictitious. My son dropped tears. We'll deal with the issues of evidence in the High Court, where we've appealed. This is not a court. But I thought it was important for me to make it very clear that Simusamba is a danger to the judiciary, and he should be removed from the judiciary. And by copy of that judgment, and by the way, he delivered judgment on the 14th. Up to now, my lawyers have been going to him. He's saying the judgment is not ready. He can't give them a copy of the judgment because it's not ready. Now, when you are delivering a judgment, you are reading from a prepared judgment already text. If people want copies, you just make photocopies. But from the 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, 24, 25, 26, 27, today is 28, 29 is still saying that the judgment is not ready. And I have, through my vice president, who is a lawyer, we've carried out a search on Simusamba. From the time he joined the judiciary, he has never delivered a judgment in 15 days. You remember when we closed the case? 14 days. He said he was going to do judgment in 14. He has never written a judgment in 14 days all his practicing life. The minimum he has delivered is about 6 months. The minimum he has delivered judgment took him 6 months. But for me, it was supersonic speed. 14 days, judgment ready, sent to prison. Kabia prison Kambwili. Pakulandila kwa wena Zambia. Pakunje wati. Pakukano kumpela 300,000. And coincidentally, the 300,000 he was asking is the bail he has charged him. What a world we live in. And go and see again. It's unprecedented. And there is no history in this country where somebody asking for bail pending appeal has been charged 300,000 cash bail. Go and see. It's the first. It's a world record in Zambia. They have never charged anybody 300,000 because that is what they have squeezed me. And I've been complaining, no, I've got no money, why is the squeeze? So he thought, an alarm have 300, that Zakalai from prison. Nombalesa, Mukul. He doesn't know that I've got family, I've got friends who would not say, my usual name in England, I can hustle around and find leave. But in Anaku jail, I've got family. We're a big family. And my family just came and said, no, we cannot allow our person to go to prison. And 300,000 was organized within a short period of time. After that, they organized 300,000 again. What does he do? Immediately, he runs away. Kumufwaya the whole day, she read everything. He was nowhere to be seen to attend to my judgment. Around 17 hours, that's when he calls the marshal. He knew 17 hours the bank was closed to go and deposit the money. He knew by the time they come from there, assign a paper of authorized to go and deposit the money, the registry at the court would be closed. I spent one more day in prison. And he even made it. First and foremost, in his judgment, he said he was going to give a punitive. I thought the law has changed. Prison is correctional. They've removed, they are no longer calling it prison. It's correctional. To take a not being punitive. But here is the majesty says, I'm going to give a sentence punitive. 2 years, 1 year each. Concurrent. Again, when giving bail, he repeats the same thing. I'm a details. He said, yes, I'll admit him to bail, but I'll be punitive and very stiff conditions. Mweba nensu munenu alipianga ine. Mwayabula 300,000 from him. Abike mukoti. Tamuishi venerio apiu ikesa. Shirempianga tilashiri kukoti. It will not earn interest. By the time Mulandu will karapwa, 300,000 would be about 20,000. Umufulo fye weka umufulo. Variato, bali bachile convict. Bail pending appeal. And that was 2.5 million. We are shika 2.5 million. Allegation. Tawa pele cash bail. Tawa pele bail in his recognition. Waka tele kalumba. Tawa pele cash bail. And many other prominent people and ordinary people. But Mbwili, Bantu Mbwili, ile land la kwa vena Zambia. Ipo keni 300,000. Tubike fekua county. Mrandoro kaporo ikesa hapo. Alokufie ngomu nenu pafyo ta. Chivi. Lesa tatemo. But I'm comforted by the fact that Jesus Christ mwanalesa pakufwa Yesu mwanalesa ushakwe choruvembu. Atile mwilandirila. Muleilila mwevenye. Nabana venye. Apitile mmachushi. Apumwa. Atukwa. Atanikwa. Elwaisa mwene kati mwanalesa. So I can only thank the following people for this issue of me going to jail without committing any offense. Honorable Steve Chungu, MP Luansha constituency. Nathan Chanda, Mayor Luansha. Chirufia Tayari. I don't know what title I can give. I can define that young man. Chirufia Tayari, my younger brother. I want to thank you people, together with Honorable Simo Samba, for taking me to court without committing an offense. Just sheer jealousy and nothing else. And I can leave you in the hands of God. Posterity will judge you very harshly. As for me, I will leave this issue in the hands of the appeals court to determine my fate. But my appeal to the government and the judiciary, don't let the judiciary be destroyed by one man. muchibemba batila imputisula taibula kuwekesha uakalemanawo takaleka. For you people in government, some of you can celebrate that. Kambwili bamuka kuli musubu samba muleke mailoni wake sa ikusha 400 no kukaka. Echo shaka ni moni mwae that never you leave an enemy behind, for one day it shall rise. If bamembe bachitire, he left an enemy behind. Yai mafuti yasatuko. No, but for me, vengeance is for God. For me, vengeance is for God. I can give you an example. The magistrate wanka kile MMD. When we won, people came to me. No, we must sort out that magistrate. He must be fired. Now, you know, standing judge in Shamulumbulation. If I was a bad person who doesn't reason, who behaves politically, I'm a politics, I would have instigated the firing of that tree. Because even Mr. Sata was not happy when I was jailed under MMD. It was magistrate in Shaboken. But I never went to Mr. Sata and say, Sir, the magistrate wang kakile nomba tumuchitepo, because in Echilandu shchava na lesa. Mfwaya fyo muntu mwine ava guilt padwakwe akachitena repent so that he doesn't do such a thing to other people, but not for me to say imuchitefi binangu fye fyonse byachitika kuli ine. Bambi bali kwata no mwenso ati Kambwili mingaba president akesa atuchita chakuti na chakuti awe batata baletwewo kutire Echilandu shi chava na lesa. Elo muntu ngakuchite chivi. It is just part of life, but musambi lepo chino na bambi abantu basambi lepo chino. Even my young brother Simusamba, I have nothing against you, young man, and I'll never hate you. Even when I meet you, I'll greet you. But conscious when we conscious. Yakulaku. And when our president, we can push an instruct self kamukla papa of your wife I will not be interested. If you've been in the civil service, mukala womba fe wemu inechikala kuliafi. Ngatuwaku mana watu muka. But you know which stage we tefi abamwana Kambwili. Tefi batata batufungi. Coming to Chilufya Tayari, I can only say, young man, I feel sorry for you with your rantings. Like I've said, if this case was fairly looked at, Chilufya Tayari could have even been locked up for perjury. Like he's saying, no, Bakambwili could never talk of perjury. In his own statement in court, Chilufya says, Bakambwili Vachtre register company in 2013 ilo bali ba minister. Bafunya question yabo babika kweli aba fictitious. Kakutwale poka ma contract government not to realize that even ba company. Are you listening? In court, that's what Chilufya said. He registered the company in 2013 so that he can be getting contracts as sitting minister, so that he can influence those contracts without being noticed. When the documents were pulled out from Pakra, that Mwamona Engineering was registered in 2001. Well back before I was minister, I was MP. August 2001. But Chilufya went and told lies that Bakambwili Embeshe company in 2013. And the Majesty couldn't consider that lie. Embeshe in 2015, you know, minister. But contract. To the contrary, Mwamona Engineering was registered in 2001 on the 28th of August. I was not minister, I was not MP, I was just a member of Central Committee in charge of the Copper Belt that time, of PF. And I didn't know in 2001 whether I was minister. Would we have known? Because umweo wa muntu wa muri chilinda. Mailo kuti wafu. Mailo kuti vakutamcha ngefina mantamcha MPF. So to kandembeshe government ngana ba minister mu 2013 ngese mukuyipela ama contract ukwabulo kwisho so nabika question yawo. Muri sense umwane? Then he says Bakambwili bale bonse Mwamona Engineering to threaten people to bulldoze his way to get contracts from the mines, contracts from Mopani. He was doing all the contracts at Mopani, all the contracts in the government. To the contrary, let me put the record straight. Mwamona Engineering from government direct, it has only done one contract. The Liteta police station. The Liteta police station. The other 2-3 contracts that are related to government were subcontracts. Which subcontracts Mwamona tendered, not the subcontract, the provincial chairman, Eva Lembalisti, Yava subcontract. That time when a contractor is given a job, what they used to, the contractor will advertise, and the subcontractors will apply, will tender, like the normal tendering in government, and they'll pick. Was on the Luingu Mansa Road where we were picked on merit. So which contracts is that saying I was getting so many contracts? Records are there to see. Go and see if Mwamona did. Mwamona's big customers were the mining companies. We're mining for Mopani, we're mining for KCM, we're mining for Luansha Mine. And Mwamona did not pay attention to business government. And by the way, people of Zambia, I was Minister of Youth and Sport 2012. If you remember, I was sitting on a budget of 1.8 billion kwacha that time and rebased. Huh? To do infrastructure development for the where we renovated the university, we renovated the colleges, we were constructing new playing fields, the swimming pool. My CEO, Mr. Famous Kabwe, came to me and said, we want to tender for these jobs. I told him, conflict of interest, 6 contracts. I cannot entertain this.
Is not permanent.
Where you come with your Chinese and say you want to work with them, are influenced to give you a contract. I can never do that. Hello, as long as you are my brother, stay out of these contracts that Minister of Youth and Sport. He stopped talking to me. This man here.
I called him with bad person.
And said, you have no pangendarama. If you basunga my families, I said, Basanga. What na this shive? The silence social. Genuinely, even if you be given a job genuinely, one day they'll come and say, it is because I was minister and I gave you the jobs because you are my brother. Now, Papa Tasana, save my future, save my children, and save the name of the family. Him, Chishimba Kambwili. And none of my relatives or close associates had any contract to do with Zone 6. That's Chishimba Kambwili for you. Tell my son to a court for not committing an offense. It's painful. It's extremely painful and annoying. I told my CEO Famous, if he was here, we were going to tell you, you can't tender for jobs in a ministry where you are. And to wrap it up, members of the press, Tayari says, Nale Fisa, to be careful fictitious name poverty, Nde my interest in Mwamona. Go to the High Court of Zambia, go and look at my declarations. 2011, when I was minister, go and look at my declaration. 2013, 14, 15, I declared in all my declarations that I had interest in Mwamona Engineering. How then? My office put me to court, genuinely. I can even challenge anybody. I'm no longer in government. I'm government. Oh, nobody went to me na phone. Nanguba Zesco, any other company, whoever at Mwamona Engineering company yes we penny contract. I challenge anybody to come out and say that I'm with valid to appeal a contract or to appeal a Mwamona Engineering contract. I challenge everybody. That's how honest I am. I have built my reputation over a long period of time, and I wouldn't want to lose my reputation. Let's attack them. Hello, Bushikuba Renkoning, wise against you, not from me. You know, I put that or it. You answer your own to Kawaland, if you squash, come which one. Shavala Quatapo Church is an away. I have never had a confrontation with you. Only one time I told you, guys, look at the eye. What have I done to you? Deliberately, I don't answer you. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not. Sometimes my cadres have come. Katayad kule koma. Andrew Miyabashan. Baka mikaka kofi. And I will not come to prison in Gabamikaka. Mulekeni fye. Inshikushika musanga. Ichiwe mbachitila. Inshikushila linganya. Shalingenye nina. No mwana. Inshiku shilinganya. Shalingenye nina no mwana. Umwa ichenao ekalishirwanya. Nga ule ibala ulole ibala ula. Tawaka ibala ule ushikubunya. Because imwe mipashi teisu mokuchushe ya ulomulani. Kambwili used to abuse his office. He's a bully. He was doing all contracts at Mwamona. Let me tell you, Zambians and the whole world. Mwamona Engineering had one contract at Mopani Copper Mines. One contract, which I was not involved. Mr. Mwanza, who was mine manager at Luansha, he was mine manager at Konkola, is the one who was employed by Mwamona to run Mwamona and look for contracts. He's the one who was running at Mopani, because that time you know that by MMT when you're in the opposition, they'll never give you business. So the whole thing was left in the hands of Mr. Mwanza. He managed to get a contract from Mwamona. In 2009, 9, 10, 11, 12, I was a minister in 2012, 3 years later. But you said it's time influence Kumain. He was being given contract. One check at Mopani. Mwamona had only one contract from 2009 to 2019 when it was terminated. It's a mining contract. And by the way, Mwamona is well established. It's got mining equipment, and you should be proud that there's a Zambian company that is a good mining developer with equipment. And they're being given contracts was on merit. Not who few what Kambwili was abusing his office, is a bully. I've never na case ya abuse of authority or anything. Number one, that is fictitious. Mebangunine Inshkumutanda. I come to the issue of the last issue. It was not even going to be part of this press briefing, but when I read the newspaper today, particularly the masks, and what I heard yesterday after I came back from the memorial service of my mentor, the man I respect so much, the man who is responsible for all the developments you are seeing in Isebo. He made a plan, a 20-year plan. Michael Chilufiasad made a 20-year plan to read that Dora says Mr. Sata destroyed the agriculture sector because kumyawo baliatute takwaba mataba so taba ishive vya fertilizer is an insult to Mr. Sata. Let me quote what Dora said. My heart bleeds. Where was that? Where was that I saw? No, it's the comment. It's the editorial. Yes, it says I just want to go on the portion where it talks about my mentor, my father, the owner of PF, Theodora Lelo Adimo Minister. It says the 8 bags of fertilizer we got under Rupia Banda disappeared because Mr. Sata ate cassava, which does not require fertilizer, and you started calling us Paya Farmer, and it is now under President Edgar Lungu that the agriculture sector is being revamped. What an insult. Dora, wherever you are, apologize for this statement. People of Zambia, you may remember very well, and I was in the forefront in Parliament when the MMD decided to reduce the number of bags for FISIP from 8 to 4. You remember? You remember my debate in Parliament? I said this move is aimed at you sharing the 8 bags so that you can have more people being given fertilizer to create a big network for people to vote for you. This is a political stance. And we cannot support it as PF. Please, Mwese Shaban to 8 bags. The reduction from 8 bags to 4 was done under Rupia Banda towards the elections. Because they didn't have enough money to add more people on the FISIP. So they just decided to reduce the bags to 4 so that they can put more villagers on FISIP to get 4 bags, 4 bags. We condemned it as PF. Lubinda, you were there. Jean Kapata, you were there. How can you guys sit and relax and be quiet that Dora is saying that Sateva reduce 8 bags to 4? Nombana mtampo fiwamia na fiwama. Please, mwila tukabasata. Mwila tukabasata. Dora waweke shapo. When you were coming in PF, I said, I will not work with this woman upon my dead body. If it means selling the soul to the devil himself, I will. Unless she apologizes, you apologize. Can she apologize? Wapele was just crocodile tears. Na lelo waweke shapo tukabasata. Does it mean abantu abafuma ku Northern Province because ku Northern Province tulalia obunga bwa tute tulalia tute chachi ne tulalia tute na basata bale do obunga bwa tute nga uli obunga bwa tute nshitawashibwa kulima amataba? You can't give people fertilizer. Mr. Sata, in fact, before elections, said they were going to start giving about 12 bags. But what happened? We found the coffers were empty. We found the coffers were empty. If we went to increase the bags again, it was going to be very, very difficult. We're going to eat up the reserves. We're going to eat up the reserves just for FISIP. We said, okay, let's stabilize a bit. Up to now, bags of minimum have not been increased. They are still 4. Campaign, talk to the people, but please respect Mr. Sata. Respect for Mr. Sata. That position of minister you are enjoying today is because of our sweat, because of Mr. Sata's sweat. And I will not sit behind watch you insult Mr. Sata or cast aspersions over Mr. Sata. Mwaisana kumemorio kwa mwali bate mwa Sata. Lubinda na mwikala quiet baleba bepesha. Ateba ona wile eba chitari do sama amasaka ya fertilizer. Eba ona wile agriculture. Now agriculture is doing better. My heart bleeds. God bless them. Are there any questions?
Questions? This one?
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning, thank you.
I'm Joseph Tamari from QFM Radio.
Yes.
I want to find out, in an event where you appeal drugs, what does this do to your political career?
The law is very clear. The law is very clear. And I would not want to recite the law better than my vice president put it. The law is very clear. And I would not want to recite the law better than my vice president put it when I was in prison. Mind you, we must be very careful the way we interpret the law. Because anyway, interpretation of the law is only left to the courts. My vice president says Honorable Kambwili still qualifies to stand as president. Tutu Angulube answered, vakatietie mwenda mwalimu katietie mwenda mwalimu atutwanguluva tawalikoko twale echudo ichilonganino ichi vaisamukuvati Kambwili. Now that is a convict, he cannot stand. If I can't stand, why am I still president of NDC? Why am I still president of NDC? Even if I'm bad from standing for the next 5 years, am I elections there last? Am I elections there last? I don't want to cast aspersions on people or to say things out of what I prepared. Myself, I just wanted to make it very clear that Sumusamba acted badly and was being insincere by the comments that he made. And obviously, to ask my young sister, Dora, to apologize to Mr. Sata. And this must be the last time that you are bringing Mr. Sata in your nonsense.
Earlier you mentioned, my name is Oliver Singh from the MAP. You mentioned Honorable Chishimba and the Mayor of Wanshanapichan. You thanked them for having orchestrated your going to prison and court. We are curious, what was their role in...
Your guess is as good as mine. Next.
Yes, Alfonso from New Vision newspaper. Mr. President, first of all, I thank you to see you in high spirit. I just want to find out from you, how is your experience, or how was your experience during your stay in the correctional facility? And do you see political influence in your jail?
You don't discuss a matter which is before court. We have appealed. And if I start saying, no, it's political interference, it's this one, I'll be being unfair to myself. You, the general public, are able to differentiate sense from nonsense. And I don't think you should make me start doubting your intelligence, young man. From what I've said here, where the magistrate can even lie that I used to abscond court, I faked COVID. I'm well certain, and I trust you. I trust your intelligence and your ability to differentiate sense from nonsense, which is very good. Your IQ is very high. But the mere fact that you have asked that question shows you are a very intelligent person. But please don't put words in my mouth. About the experience, huh? My experience in prison is a good experience for one who wants to be president, because it will give you an insight of how those people in prison must be looked at. And I want to appeal to my elder brother, President Edgar Lungu. The 900 people that you pardoned, thank you very much, but please pardon some more. There's too much congestion in prison. Abantu mu prison tabalala bekalafye because there is no space. There is serious congestion, and my appeal is that these petty crimes, I vote mataba form mabala kunsala, atobo munankolu pika asoti, bamuchena fia paka pola. Please avoid sending such people to prison. The prisons are too congested. That's one. Secondly, the diet in prison is very bad. But you fear Chilemba, you have Ramona Fimo through and through. Put by Pangamian but Naboban, Parafa cook a balanced diet. Pamona Conetanta Yanko. Because when you take people to prison, you are saying we can look after you, we can feed you. But don't go and just lump people in an enclosure where you cannot feed them. The situation is a little bit okay right now, because at least Nalemona varia breakfast, varia na lunch, na for 16 hours life. Aliako sample, but the diet is not balanced, and is not a diet to talk about. No musaru fi kule shupa basic musaru wakati abafungwa bali for those who are responsible akampyongo mwachwani onene kutila abafungwa balekwatefula kujja bapresident lomukala achita pardon ela tachipwile tena istata ipwile independence was just 4 days kunyeni kona bambi 10,000 which type of congestion the situation is very bad, extremely bad. In a cell muga toilet team muli abantu nangwa 300 elo bonse nabalwala diarrhea kala inyela bo. It's as simple as that. In a cell muli abantu 400 muli abalwala diarrhea 10. It is really very, very bad. The situation is extremely bad. We can use the COVID, we can use prerogative of mess to decongest the freedom. In any case, pamwaba bamule ma petty crimes. Elo chilele ngabantu kulwanga ni asoti ni nsala. Umwini ali nensala elo waya musunga. Ufishe chifushi muli. Finally, let me say that the way my wife and daughter were treated, again, I would say vengeance is for God. But don't treat people like that for police. But I'm going to let Don Sanyabaka Shwani. No man, I want to do a woman. Decent people. This is a formula and the Malava Takan. Hello, Chichi Shireta Gutila. Umuntu ngali kwata fish na Kambwili ketengile nchito ketumupele police bond surely on a misdemeanor makano kupena umuntu police bond yakayapokera court but abantu abayile ku police name futhi bayaphuma bakapokera mwapela police bond Simon kukwata Fenson mwebe wamona kati bachapande sevana shimombi ngaseka And to close, there are no any other questions. I want to thank the prison authorities for being professional. If there is a department of government that has remained professional, is the prisons. Despite working under very difficult conditions, the officers there are very professional. They respect people, even inmates are not ill-treated. Keep it up, prisons. Under difficult conditions. But nafilanda ndile kuna mulombela kofe balungu. Kunyeni kwa abantu nangu another 10,000. Mujeli. Nakati mga funye ino nchita mume, mga funye kwa bengi. Abantu bale chula. Elo mulandu mume tukumpula. Uwa ishi ya Kambwili yakaba convict nani. Nemwine shipango mulandu kusa isanga convict. Mwimu ya orange. Lesa mpale.
Drop your mask. Yeah. When did you come back?